Good afternoon, everybody. It's 1 o'clock. That time on Thursday when we come together to have some discussions around facility management and generally just, look at our work practices and try to make some improvements. It's my pleasure to be hosting this session and just sharing my thoughts with you on a weekly basis. I hope you're enjoying the sessions. For those of you who have been consistent from week to week, if you've been enjoying it, I would also encourage you to invite all those who you have in your network who need to, be encouraged every now and then, or to learn some skills on how to navigate the workplace and provide results with excellence. My name is Paul Erubami. I'm the MD of Max-Migold Limited. I'm also the president of the Association of Facility Management Practitioners Nigeria. I've always been a facility manager. Started out trained as an architect, and from there, veered straight into facility management. And over the course of 20 years, I have, acquired all of the certifications and qualifications, credentials relevant for top of the FM profession in Nigeria. I also bring to you some of the experience of working in some of the largest FM portfolios. So every time you engage with me, you're someone who's worked with hundreds of people, hired and trained and mentored over the last 20 years. I've also managed some of the largest FM portfolios. I'm also qualified to teach all of the IFMA international certifications. So there's so much coming out from every session that you meet. So to be in, everybody's best interest to have as many people justify the investment of time that I put into coming to you on a weekly basis. After we dealt with the strategic facility management series that ran for almost 2 months, we started with the asset management series. And today, the third week of this series. In this series, we're going to look at our assets, asset registers, the various considerations around managing our assets. We will be looking at maintenance of assets today, especially from the strategic point of view. And then next week, we'll have some more sessions on maintenance planning, where we're going to throw in a little bit of technology, how technology can help you in scheduling and planning your maintenance. We're also going to have a session on financial management, but that session will also come from the standpoint of working from Facility Commission assessment, your FCA, determining your FCI, and see how your investment in your maintenance and assets will yield the best results for your organization. When we are done with this asset management series, we're going to go into another series that is going to be more general to apply to everybody. So if you are here because you're a facility manager, from the month of November, we'll go into the workplace productivity series, where it's not just about facility management. This is going to be a series that's going to be applicable to everybody in the workplace. So whether you're an accountant, whether you're in engineering, production, whether you're an IT professional, software developer, whether you're in administration or any role you hold in the organization, you will not want to miss the workplace productivity series. So I look forward to having a lot more of you. Talk to your friends. We have capacity on this Teams platform to host as much as 10,000 people. And we have on all of our social media platforms, live on Facebook, live on LinkedIn, live on Instagram, live on X, these sessions. And you can just be in any of the platform, whatever platform is, is handy with you on Thursday by 1 o'clock. You're live here with us, and the next 1 hour will be a great time. So I did some announcement about the bonanzas we're running for the FMMC Diploma, the FM Mastercraft Diploma And I assured you that we're going to, even though the prices for these programs have moved to the 600 range, ranges from January, we're going to allow those who make installment payments between now and November 30th to lock in the old rates. So this is the reality that we're in. Again, you also know that trying to pay for a life transforming career ascension program like this in January might see you being faced with multiple challenges of the new year, and it may make it a bit difficult for you to meet with your commitment. But if you start now to work towards it, to be more structured, in a more structured approach, you will be able to most likely make the significant commitments you need now for when that time comes, so you don't miss out on the opportunity. I've had comment and feedback from quite a few people who have been in the FM industry, been to our free sessions, been following on the free giving back series sessions, even earned a couple of certificates for the free sessions, but never quite took the FM diploma. And some have complained that, it's the money they couldn't afford. Some have said, they've been very busy, and as such, they have not had time to commit to the FM diploma, even though we've made it as flexible as possible and make it so easy for anybody to participate in. But this last week, I had an experience where I had to work with a client to interview facility managers for an FM position. And it dawned on me that several people are, going around to places where they don't have the FM pedigree, they don't have the skills, they don't have the, the content to teach FM, to just acquire any cheap certificates. So you start hearing people say, I'm a certified facility manager, and when you ask them where they got the certificate from, it's either online or from some institution across the street. And then they make they make themselves a joke, from such interviews. If you only had the the opportunity to hear the kind of comments the interviewers make when they interview you that have not had the FM diploma and interview the person who's had the FM diploma, and you see the way they compare your responses and your approach to facility management in interviews, I'm not sure you would think twice and keep delaying. Besides, it's obvious that everyone who makes the sacrifice, makes the move, invests what it takes, even at the cost or the sacrifice of other conveniences now, they get the pay back so quickly that in their performance, in their promotions, in the new jobs they get, they're able to offset whatever investment they've made so easily. And then I see some vacancies that come out, and someone who's applied for a vacancy, I was interviewed in January, applied for another one, was interviewed in April, applied for another one, I was interviewed again in October. Why will you be looking for work from January to October? There is something fundamentally wrong with what you are doing, right? You can't be out there searching for work as a facility manager in Nigeria today with the kind of huge demand we're having in FM, and for 10 to 12 months you are still in the job market. That's unheard of. That's something we don't want you to experience. So for a start, try to engage with us in the facility management training platform on WhatsApp. We have a WhatsApp group where we have people just basically engaging about opportunities, job opportunities, training opportunities, learning opportunities in facility management in the WhatsApp group. I would ask the admin in Max-Migold office to please drop the joining link for the WhatsApp group on this chat, on this Teams chat, and also drop it on all the other social media platforms so that anyone can join and we can have a real-time ongoing conversation about the challenges you're having at work, about the issues you're having, meeting your commitments, especially with regards to joining the FMMC Diploma. And we have a series of solutions for you. For some, you would enjoy our flexible payments, which can pay as little as 35,000. Maybe with the new prices in January, that will be somewhere around 60 or 70,000 per month. But somehow you have that flexible option, and you can pay up even after you have finished the program. How beautiful is that? So we're looking forward to a good number of you making that move in getting into the FM Diploma. And the next class is starting in January. We've put that out on our website, and we hope you will take advantage of this and be part of it. Okay. All right. So to today's topic, we said we're going to be looking at maintenance strategies. I'm just going to share my screen, and then we can get right. Okay, maybe you can see my screen now. So just as an introduction, maintenance strategies is trying to answer the question, why do we carry out certain activities, certain maintenance activities? If you are an apprentice coming into facility management, working in maintenance, you will readily see already on ground a series of tasks prescribed for as maintenance activities for different assets, different equipment, different components. And so for most of us, we just get into it, we learn what and how, and then we begin to do maintenance. But whoever prescribed those specifics, those what's, those activities for us to perform. So the activities I have to perform when I'm managing or maintaining generators is different from those I would do when I'm maintaining air conditioning systems and so on and so forth, right? Now, for each of those activities, you will normally see prescriptions like how often you should do it, what kind of tools to apply, what kind of resources, what spares need to be changed, and so on and so forth. So frequencies, resources, costs, they come into that planning. But those things were decided by someone who knows why. Okay. If you were told, for example, one of the things you should do for a generator is that after a certain number of hours, you should take out the oil in the engine and put in a fresh supply of oil into that engine. Take out the engine oil, put in fresh supply of engine oil into the engine is what? How to do it. You open it out, take out the filter, you put in a new filter, you drain out the oil, you put in new oil, and so on and so forth. That's the how. But why should we take out the oil, right? Why should we take out the oil? What's happening in that equipment that is making us to want to take out the oil? So why are you prescribing that I should take out the oil at a certain after a certain runtime, right? By the time you go through today's session, you will be one of those who have become elevated beyond the what and how of maintenance, because today we're going to be talking about why. Why do we do this? Why do we do that? And that's what maintenance strategies is trying to answer. Because once you know why, you make better informed decisions. You are more, you're more logical in your prescriptions. You can go against the norm easily and still be right because you know why you're doing what you're doing. So in maintenance strategies, there are three key strategies for any assets that you have to manage. There are three key strategies you can deploy. It is the strategy that determines what you will do that dictates the maintenance activities that you will deploy for that asset. And for every asset, you must assign a strategy. In fact, this is something that is significant, a key part of your asset register. We talked about asset register last week, and we looked at some 18, 20 line items that represent the columns of optional data that you should acquire for your assets to fully describe your assets in that asset register. So if somebody says, hey, what are you managing? Where's your site, and what is it you are doing on that site? Your base document is the asset register. That's what you bring up to say, these are the things I'm managing, right? So for every of the assets you have listed, in your asset register. By the way, what you list in your asset register, we talked about your spaces. You build your space hierarchy, and you number and name all your spaces. So every space is a line item in your asset register. The equipment that are installed in those spaces, you list them and describe them using all of those line items. The components, building components, and parts that make up that structure. It's talking about the roof, talking about the windows, doors. Those may not be called equipment, but they're component parts of the building. They all make up asset line items. And then do you have natural vegetation, trees, shrubs, grass in your site that you also maintain? Of course, you acquire them for a reason. Everything you acquire that gives you value must be listed in your assets. So spaces, equipment, building components, trees, plants, and so on and so forth. And even if you have, pools and water bodies, ponds, whatever it is, they must all be listed independently on the asset register. So once you've had those items identified in your asset register, the next thing you need to make sure you have is the maintenance strategy for each of them. Every item must have a maintenance strategy, and there are only three types of strategies that you can deploy. There's the run to failure strategy, which we also call the reactive strategy, maintenance strategy. So I'll talk about the strategies one by one, but the first thought that comes to your mind will be, why do I want to call something run to failure or reactive? Isn't that counterintuitive? Isn't that unproductive approach to dealing with the work that I do? But we're going to learn more about that in a bit, and just get that understanding, clear. And then you have the preventive strategy. One second. All right, so run to failure is a maintenance strategy. As we look into it deeper, you realize that it is actually one of the most important maintenance strategy, in the sense that it is the best strategy for most of our assets. Most of our assets. In fact, if you have a very detailed asset register and you start allocating, you will find out that close to 95-96% of your assets are going to sit well, comfortably with this run to failure strategy. All right, but we're calling it a strategy deliberately, because what that means is that it is a deliberate approach to maintaining a particular asset, right? And if it's a deliberate approach, it means that you have planned for thought through the approach, and you have a methodology in place. So that methodology we're going to look at, and how to walk your way towards implementing run to failure or reactive strategy as a strategy for maintenance, we'll talk about in a bit. The next one is the one that most people are familiar with, the preventive or planned maintenance. This is the type of maintenance that requires to do repetitive activities or actions on a particular asset just to keep it functioning. Okay, we'll talk about that in a bit. And then the next one I'm going to talk about is a predictive maintenance strategy. This is a maintenance strategy that is repetitive, like the preventive, but in its repetition, it is not, you're not carrying out specific maintenance activities. Instead, you're doing specific maintenance data acquisition in terms of checks, inspections, and so on and so forth. And you're making predictive analytics and making decisions to understand how the equipment is about to fail and what you can do to make sure it doesn't fail. You are still trying to prevent it from failing, but you are not doing that by carrying out repetitive maintenance activities like preventive. We'll talk about it in a bit as well. What we'll not be looking at today is the reliability-centered maintenance. Come to the FM Diploma and learn something superior. You become a well-trained, well-groomed professional in maintenance, okay? Because these are the same content we teach to those who have paid for the FM Diploma, and this is what gives them the edge that you don't have out there. No matter how many years you have as an experienced person in maintenance, you still won't be able to catch 5% or 10% of the knowledge and skills that are practically imparted on all those who take the FM Diploma in just a 3 months period. Okay, so don't undo yourself. Come join the program and learn deeper things about facility management that will stand you out. Okay. All right, so let's go straight to these strategies. There are other things, objectives of strategy, how to choose a strategy. I'll talk a little bit about how to choose a strategy so that once you understand what the strategies are themselves, you should be able to choose a strategy. Okay, so I won't hold that back from you. Common challenges on how to, with strategies, some of the things you will learn on the FM Diploma. Now let's look at the run to failure or the maintenance strategy. This is a strategy that prescribes that no action should be taken on an asset component or equipment unless the equipment or asset component is about to fail or has failed. About to fail means the defect is already observable, even though the equipment is still running. So, for example, you could have an air conditioning unit that is now producing noise in addition to cooling, right? Or a machine that is pumping water that is now producing heat in addition to pressure to pump the water, or any equipment that you expect to be doing one thing, a processing equipment, a computing equipment, for example, that is now vibrating or producing excessive heat. That is a defect. It might still be working, but it is struggling to do that. So at that point, you know that you've observed a defect. Whatever action you take at the point where you have observed a defect is a run to failure. It means you have deployed now. So there's a bit. Consider this. If I consciously designate an asset as an asset that I want to manage with reactive or run to failure maintenance strategy, that is the only time when it's breakdown and my action to repair it is correctly in line with that strategy. If I designate an asset, managing an asset with another strategy, and I fail to carry out the activities required by that strategy, and the asset or equipment fails, and I come in to repair it, I am doing reactive work, fix after failure, but it does not form a strategy. If something fails, say if you fall down, I want to stand up. Yes. So if I fail to do my preventive activities on an equipment that preventive is more suited for, right? And I've already designated that equipment as this equipment will be maintained using the preventive maintenance strategy. I don't justify my carry out preventive activities by saying, oh, it broke down and then I'm quick to. If I want to change that equipment from preventive to run to failure, I should do that consciously. It will reflect in my asset register and also reflect in my maintenance program. Okay, so next one we're talking about the maintenance planning. I'll walk you through a simple model for developing a maintenance program and a maintenance plan. Okay, but you know, in today's class, I want you to just think about run to failure as something you do consciously. I have this big screen, TV screen in front of me in the office. I have designated it as a run to failure maintenance strategy. What this simply means is that I don't have any scheduled activities to maintain this screen. No matter the cost of buying this TV screen, right? I will not do anything to it. The normal cleaning that is done in the office is what is going to endure as part of operations. So there is no maintenance activities, tied to it. I don't have somebody who comes to check on it, who have to unscrew it and look inside and tighten things and other things. There will be nothing like that, right? So that's conscious. If I try to put it on tomorrow and the TV, probably has a line across, doesn't come on, starts making some funny noise, any kind of discernible defects, I know I have planned that for this equipment, it is run to failure. Now it has shown a defect, I'm going to take an action to repair that equipment. Okay, so that's run to failure. It doesn't apply to, failing to implement your other strategies. Okay, so don't assume that you can just convert and start talking about it as run to failure as a strategy when you failed with another strategy, right? If you failed with another strategy, it doesn't change the strategy. The strategy is still what it is, but you failed in implementing it. Okay. Now, so you restore the equipment back to its internal function when it fails. This approach can be cost effective for small equipment. But maybe very costly for complex equipment, critical equipment. All right. So let's look at situations when this kind of strategy is best for. Take your building. If you start trying to itemize your asset register from the roof, let's go from the top of your building all the way down, right? So you will have on the external side, you will have the roof, roofing sheet, roof members, you have the ceiling coming down, you have walls, you have windows and doors, you have slabs of floors, you have the structural that make up the building, you have the foundation, you're coming in, you have electrical assets installed, switches, sockets, distribution boards, consumer units, fuses, breakers, circuit, exhaust fans, and so on. You have the air conditioning equipment, the indoor unit, the outdoor unit, or split units, window units of ACs, central units with their chillers, air handling units, fan coil units, whatever. And then you go on to plumbing, you have the piping, you have the fittings, toilets, wash and basins, bathtubs, and so on and so forth. Just continue doing your asset register. You're listing all the way down, right? And if you take all of this, these things I've just listed, how many of them, or which of them, do you think will require you to do repetitive maintenance activities? Only a very few. Of all the things I've listed, only the air conditioning systems requires repetitive activities because one, they have moving parts. Two, they can trap dust. They also filter air, right? And then it has a compressor with gas moving in and out and all that activity that's taking place. And over time, it can get clogged. The ducts can become clogged. The filters can become clogged if not, maintained with certain activities, which is basically opening it up to clean it and check ABC. For my roof, I will do nothing. Even if I go up there once a year to check the roof, I don't have a regular maintenance routine set out for the roof. I don't have to go and start screwing every bolt and nut in the roof. I don't have to go start painting it unless it's a particular type of roof that requires such regular coating. Then I move it from run to failure away, right? My ceiling, my walls, my structures, my foundations, they'll probably just be in place. And I'll probably do nothing about them. But I am consciously maintaining them even though I'm doing nothing about them. That is the beauty of run to failure. I am consciously maintaining them because I have allocated a strategy, and based on that strategy, I just use them and watch them serve me, right? And then, now this is where your conscious application of this strategy comes in. Then if they do fail, if any defects raise its head or something that happens, I must make sure I have my plan for how to respond. All right, so I capture, for example, run to failure, potential breakdown in my budget. I have money earmarked for, so I have 1,000 chairs in my conference room, for example, and this conference room is used 2-3 times a week. So there's bound to be chairs broken every now and then. How many do I estimate will be broken this year? Out of those, maybe 20, out of those 20, how many will be a total write-off and how many will be just repair the seat pad or the chair handle, and so on and so forth. I create that kind of based on, again, depending on my historical data from managing assets in previous years, and have a budget set. I'm not going to wait until the chair breaks before I start going to management to say, we have an event for 1,000, and out of our 1,000 chairs, 20 are broken. We need money now. That's what happens to many FMs, right? Where you look like you're not conscious of what you are doing. You're not having that presence of mind. You're not, you don't own the work you are doing to the point where you can come to management to say, and 2 sheets came off, we have to go and get those 2 sheets, give us money for that, right? No, you need to be able to estimate what might go wrong with all of these assets that you have listed on the run to failure strategy. So in essence, you are conscious of each of them. You are sure of what is going to happen to them to a certain margin of error, right? So you cannot be too precise about about this, but let your estimation be based on some facts. For example, what happened last year, last 2 years in your facility, and other post facilities that you experienced, right? So you consciously come up with this conservative number and say, with this amount, I should be good, to respond when things go wrong. That's the whole idea of a run to failure strategy. So when do you use this? One common opportunity for using this is when you have what I call, redundancies in any system, in any asset item. Let's take your server room air conditioners, for example. A server room is 5 meters by 6 meters. It's been estimated that two split air conditioners of 2 horsepower should be good enough to run that server room at a time, right? But you decided on deploying an N+1 strategy, which means you want to double the requirements for air conditioning. So you provided 4 air conditioners of 2 horsepower in that server room. But at no time will you put on 4 air conditioners, because that's not needed, right? The other 2 air conditioners, which we call standby, are what we call redundancies, right? If I have such level of redundancies, which is 100% redundancy, I can decide to apply a run to failure strategy for maintaining those ACs. What does that mean? It means that I can run 2 air conditioners day in, day out, week out, until a defect is observed. Oh, there was a noise. Oh, I saw dust falling off it. Oh, something was leaking water from it. Then boom, I move in. I put on the next 2 that have been sitting down there for 3 months, 4 months, doing nothing. They are still brand, they are still fresh, and then they start working. And then I take down these 2 that develop one fault or the other. I fix, I service, I clean, I wash, I do whatever I need to do, replace certain components, and test them to be sure they are ready again. And then they are ready, and then I move on again. So they are ready to replace these other 2 when they do fail. If I have redundancies, the same thing applies to pumps. You have critical pumping systems that provide, water boosted to high-rise towers that must be backed up. You must have redundancies. You cannot afford to have one single pipe, one single pump, for example, supplying water to, boosting water to 17 floors and 20 floors, for example. So because of that, I do that backup arrangement. With that, I'm happy to run a run to failure approach. I don't necessarily need to do anything to, shut it down, service the pump, do this and that. No. Just leave it, let it run. Swimming pools, the same thing, and so on. So you may have certain equipment that are critical to your delivery, but because of your redundancies in place, you choose to go for a run to failure. Run to failure in that case will be economical for you than to have someone who comes in every now and then. A second opportunity for run to failure is for certain equipment that their components are too intricate. The engineering are so intricate that if you go dabbling into them every now and then, you might create than good, right? So if you've seen some of these electric sewing machines, the typical examples, they've made up of so many tiny parts that the manufacturers actually prescribe that they be used completely immersed in oil. So you see a sewing machine, and there's a whole gallon of oil right inside it. So the machine literally sits inside the oil, because they know that if it has a problem, there's very little anybody can do. You have to be some very experienced guru with some microscope to see some of those tiny parts to be able to do anything. So what they want to do is just keep working, right? And for it to keep working and not have any issue, just keep it soaked in that oil. It's very complex, so you run it to failure. So whenever it gets, it develops a problem in that immersed oil, you know that you are going to call a specialist. That's a run to failure strategy for that, for example. And then take your transformers. Transformers sometimes are built to last for 30 years untouched. Just keep running it. No stories. Just keep using it. It's built to do that. But sometimes we, with transformers and high tension panels. Some of us get over our heads, trying to create some, how would I put it, maintenance program that requires you to go, open it and, do this and do that every 3 months, every 6 months, every 1 year. Sometimes those equipments are so, complex that you don't with them. And that's why the manufacturers will normally make such equipment to have their own built-in cooling system if they know that heat generation can be the main failure point or failure mode of that equipment. For some, it's motion, friction, continuously rubbing of parts that is the failure mode. And then they'll put in oil and make those parts run inside oil, right? So they've done all that so that you can run to failure, okay? They may be very critical, they may be very sensitive to your operations and your mission of your facility, but tampering with them frequently might be a big problem. For many of these items I've listed on the complex maintenance procedure category, might benefit from the predictive maintenance, and I'm going to explain that as well in a bit. So stay tuned. Some maintenance are just too expensive, so you just leave them. You just run to failure. I mean, think about people that work with furnaces, large industrial furnaces that, can melt, tons and upon tons of sand into glass, or broken bottles into molten glass for making new glass. You don't expect them to be switching off the furnace and, doing some maintenance work on it every 3 months. No, because it takes even months for the furnace to cool down after you have switched it off, right? So costly to go through that process. And the cost of maintenance is not just the cost of the work itself. Think about cost of maintenance in two ways: cost of the work itself and the cost of loss of productivity, which sometimes can even be more expensive than the cost of the maintenance itself. There are some equipment that are just easy to replace. Take your light bulbs. Why do I want to maintain a light bulb? No. Run it. When it's dead, I take it out and put a new light bulb. It's just easy to replace. Why do I want to do anything about it? And then there's some equipment that their failure has minimal impact. Their failure does not even have any impact on what I do or what we do here, for example. Okay, and when that happens, for example, take a window. So many windows around you in the facility, and one of them has a crack. What should I do? Just go and repair the crack. Put a new piece of glass, and whatever, seal it, and then get back my window. But if I couldn't do it today, tomorrow, next tomorrow, no big deal. I have a plan to get it done within a week, for example. The window crack will not disrupt the use of my office. So when the equipment has minimal impact, when its failure has minimal impact, you go for the reactive approach, because it means that you can keep being yourself, keep doing what you need to do with that equipment, that equipment has failed. So I just talked in a nutshell about the run to failure strategy. You can learn more about things like the advantages maintenance related to reactive maintenance. You can learn more about the advantages of that strategy in the FM diploma, and specific scenarios, how you can apply the strategy as well. For the preventive maintenance, all you do is a set of activities programmed, timed, scheduled for certain intervals. These intervals could be time intervals, daily, weekly, hourly, quarterly, and so on. Or runtime. Runtime is mostly for equipment that have meters that measure their motion. Equipment that have such motions will meet. You expect some wear and tear that is proportional to the number of tons they've made, a number of contacts they've made with each other's components. So those are what we do in preventive. We basically just follow a certain prescription of what must be done, okay, for those types of assets. And this is very common. But being common does not mean that it applies to all of our assets. Like I explained before, it applies to only a few assets. And the common way to identify assets that will need this would be that they are large equipment, they are critical and complex, and then they also have wear and tear, noticeable wear and tear from friction that will require you to pay attention to them. Because if there's excessive friction, the kind of friction you have in a transformer, because it's a solid equipment that does not have things that move up and down, it's different from the one you have from a generator, where you have hundreds of components always in constant motion and rubbing against each other. So the oil in the transformer can stay there a few years, several years in fact, and still be in good quality, except certain oils that probably require change out because they expire, they lose certain thermodynamic properties, and they will require to be changed out. But in the case of the generator, for example, you see metals going inside that lubricant will have more and more dissolved metals, different types of metals dissolving into the oil, and therefore degrading the quality of the oil and degrading its lubrication properties, and therefore becoming a problem for the generator itself. So you can see the differences, and so that's why we can prescribe other strategies for transformers different from what we prescribe for the generators. Okay, so if I take these two strategies that I've talked about and I put them together, a common thought that you can easily generate from comparing them is, for the run to failure, if I use one asset to compare run to failure versus preventive. Let me take an asset like an air conditioner. The run to failure will be a high risk air conditioner. If it breaks down, I'll be without cooling for some time while I'm fixing it. But the preventive maintenance, which requires me to go, do certain activities on it on a monthly basis, for example, might end up as an overkill. I mean, think about it. We have many air conditioners in our offices, receptions, ACs, the accountant office AC, and the boardroom AC. The boardroom is probably not even used for weeks, months sometimes. And when you're servicing ACs, what do? You go all ACs. Why do you need to do that, right? So it's an overkill for the boardroom, which is not even being used, because you expect it to run for time before the AC accumulates what you need to go and take out or clear out, right? So that is a consideration for preventive. There's what we probably consider as excessive maintenance because of what the prescription says. So when you see a generator in service, the oil is still looking good, but you have to take it out because it's 200 hours, for example. Filters, it's been removed because it's 200 hours to take out the oil filters, after 1,000 hours to take out the air filters, and so on and so forth. But somebody looks at it, this generator this component seems to be in very good shape, and then we can use it again somewhere else. When that happens, you have a value loss. So preventive can also lead to value loss. How do you get to solve this problem? Something in the middle that helps you to prevent it from failing, because run to failure means you allow it fail, but you don't want it to fail, right? And then you don't want to over maintain preventive. You don't want to take out an oil hours because it's 200 hours. You have to take it out and then realize that you've lost 50 hours value from that oil, right? So what do? The predictive maintenance strategy is what stands in between. What it does is It does not wait like the run to failure, and it checks, it goes for the assets, on a regular basis. You must do intermittent touch with the asset like the preventive, but it does not continuously perform maintenance activities like the preventive, right? What does it do? It gathers data. It uses this data to do what we call condition monitoring. So you do when you take temperature logs, when you take vibration, when you take emission logs, you're basically gathering data on the performance of an asset. There are certain trends that will emanate from those logs. If you plot them in a chart, that will tell you it is going out of a certain range. That's what we call it. That's why we call this approach, this strategy is predictive maintenance. You are using the data to predict when this equipment is probably going to go out of use, right? There's, for every equipment and asset that you deploy, there are what the engineers will call the upper limit and upper specification limits and lower specification limits for every operating parameter, right? So let me give you an example of what operating parameters are. In generators, there's temperature parameter, right? Which means the gen will generate heat while it is working. But the upper specification limit is set, which means if it goes beyond a certain degree Celsius, for example, let's say 80 or 90 degrees Celsius, then the gen should either switch off on its own, or you should be informed enough to stop it, unless you want something bad to happen, right? And then it's a lower specification. If this gen is a temperate environment and the weather is too cold and the gen is minus so and so degrees, you can't even start it, for example, right? So that has established the operating parameter for temperature for that gen. There's one for sound level, there's one for vibration level, there are so many other operating parameters that the generator will have to work within. What you are doing with predictive maintenance is that your data, the logging of data of those operating parameters, you are using that threshold to check. So the trend stays within, maybe up a little bit, down a little bit, just like when you start your car, it's not so hot. So the temperature is about 25% on that dial, and then you hit the road going to Kano. By the time you cross Ibadan, it has gotten to almost half, and then it stays there, right? It just starts enjoying the cooling system, the air coming in, the oil doing their thing, the radiator doing its thing, and it stays there. If it goes to 3/4, there's that red, that red block somewhere at the top, which tells you if that spindle crosses into that red area, then something is going to happen, right? So before the temperature spindle gets there, you say, oh, no, let me stop and check. What are you going to check? Oh, I should check the radiator, see if there's water, coolant is there, check the oil, if the oil is there, and so on and so forth. Why am I doing all that? Because I've seen an indication. That's predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance, I just check and I gather the data. I don't necessarily need to do anything on a date basis. The only thing I do on a day-to-day basis is check its condition, record it, analyze the data. Once the trend is going to go out of its operating parameter, I should know and be able to act on it. Okay. All right. So that's our session for today. I hope you've had a good time. I'll keep doing my best to bring you the best content on a week-to-week basis, and I do what I can to adjust my schedule to prioritize a session with you on a weekly basis. So it's time for your questions. I'm going to be here on the Teams app looking at the chat room. I asked the Max-Migold team to drop the joining link to the WhatsApp group on this chat. I don't think I'm seeing it here. So please drop the WhatsApp joining link on this chat and drop it on all of our social media as well. Can I verbal confirmation from anybody in Max-Migold that this is being done?
We have dropped the link for the WhatsApp on
the chat. Okay. Please also do the same thing and put a comment in for all the other social media platforms so that those who are there can come into the group. Okay. Question that comes on Facebook or LinkedIn, you can just copy the question and drop it in the Teams chat so that I can focus on one platform while taking questions. All right, since we don't have a Telegram group and we are back using WhatsApp, if we close from this session, I will be looking to answer your questions in the WhatsApp group as well. So that's where I will be dropping any answer if the questions didn't come in on time before we close this session. Okay, so next week we're going to look at maintenance planning. I'll teach you some scheduling approaches, and then we'll look at a little bit of technology, computer management system for maintenance planning. Until then, have a good week and be your best at work. Bye-bye.
So there's a question from someone on Facebook. Isn't it? Okay, I'll just drop it there so you see it.
Yes.